unbearably crushed. Utterly and unbearably. This is the same guy who we know, because we've read about this, he was stoned and dragged from the city, left outside the walls for dead, and when the other people of faith gathered around him and he came to, he went right back in for more. So if this man says he was utterly and unbearably crushed, then we better know beyond measure that that hateful thing you hear so often by well-meaning people, God never gives you more than you can handle, is a lie, pure and simple. God gives us, I'll speak for myself, I get more than I can handle so many times I can't begin to tell you. And I know as I look at you gathered here this morning that I am looking at folks who know that to be true in their own heart and lives. Sometimes God does give us more than we can handle. So how is it possible to continue? When I read about St. Paul knowing about his staying power, all I could think of was that Monty Python skit where the audio one, remember, where they're planning to attack Mary, Queen of Scots? And so you hear all the muttering and planning, quiet, quiet, Mary, Queen of Scots is coming. We're going to kill her once and for all. Shh, shh, here she comes. And you hear the clip-clop of horses' hooves, and then someone says, there she is, get her! And there's all this crashing and banging, and screaming. And then it stops for a second, and they say, there, she's dead now. There's a split second of silence, and then you hear a voice say, no, I'm not. More crashing and banging. But St. Paul in my book is like that because he's been through so many trials. There's the stoning, there's the flogging, there's the threatening with death, there's the shipwreck. I mean, his number of trials and tribulation are legion. And yet he still writes that he was utterly and unbearably crushed. So in our most difficult, painful times, we have not some syrupy platitude to turn to, but the knowledge in our souls that God understands that sometimes it is simply too much. And so then what happens? St. Paul says, then what happened for him was that he learned not to rely on himself. That's way harder for some of us than others. Some of us make so many mess-ups, we know relying on ourselves is a bad plan. But some of us are so smart and so capable and so hard-working that not relying on ourselves seems impossible. What? Admit that we're vulnerable? Admit that we do not have a clue how we will put one foot in front of the other, how we can dare to get out of bed the next day. Maybe because we keep falling when we try it. God knows us in our vulnerability. God knows us in our time of need, and God invites us, no matter how until you reach this point, maybe even past it. But sooner or later, we are called to that place in faith where we get it, that we cannot depend on ourselves. We can only give up and give to God what is utterly and unbearably crushing us, squeezing the life out of our hearts and minds and souls. It is often impossible to imagine what will cause us, especially if we're younger, what will cause us to reach that point. When I was probably in my late 20s, I remember older friends in Christ talking about those terrible times that come along and how it was possible to survive them. And of course, at say 28, I was sure I had survived some terrible times. But we will get, sooner or later, to those times that are beyond our own strength, clearly. And then we are called to do what St. Paul, capable though he was, learned was necessary. He kept upping the ante of his own output and his own diligent hard work, but then he says he learned not to rely on himself or even his best friends, but on the God who raises the dead. We worship a God who can not just help when we're hurting, not just help when we have been horrifically betrayed by people we had every right to trust, not just when our own bodies fail us, not just when life is so unfair it takes our breath away, not just then, but at each and every moment of the day, we can turn and return to the one who raises the dead, the one who promises us we have not just an eternal home, but the opportunity to breathe deeply in that same Holy Spirit that can blow up a flat piece of paper and turn it into a box. Our lives can be equally transformed by God's own Holy Spirit. Not because we're so good, or we're so holy, or because we have the right amount of faith. What, dear God, is the right amount of faith, and how does anybody get it? Not because we are so fervent in our spiritual disciplines, not because of any of that, not because of us at all, but because of Christ who loves us and figures out when we can't how to reach us, touch us, hold us, and help us move from this step to the next step, when some days we can't even imagine that there's another step to take. It was no mistake that Jesus talked about that yoke. Take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden light. Sometimes we're pulling through stuff that is so hard, God knows how we can get through. God knows. God gives us that yoke that lets us know we're not alone. We are connected to the very heart and soul and tough shoulders of Christ, who can pull us through any situation. And how do we know that? How are we reminded of that when our hearts are broken and pouring out from our bodies, as sometimes they are? I know a time in my own life when I felt like my heart had been shredded, literally shredded into such many pieces. I just had a vision of the tiny, tiny pieces pouring out through my fingers in a way that I could never be whole again. Never. And yet, God is able to heal every heart. God is able to lift every soul. And how does that miracle happen? St. Paul reminds us too, and we've seen it again and again in this church body. St. Paul writes to those Corinthians, and boy, were they pesky. Boy, did they get stuff wrong again and again and again. They were such trouble to him. They called him ugly. They said he was not a real disciple. They plagued him constantly. And yet he writes to them, talking about the power of prayer to hold and transform, thanking those faithful Corinthians, because there were some, who prayed for Paul, who prayed for the church body, who prayed for the ministry. And he says that by these prayers, you are joined to the blessings, and many will thank you for the blessings that have been ours through your prayers. When we feel like there is nothing we can do, usually we're wrong because there's often a dinner to be cooked or a yard that needs the trees, small trees cut down and needs to be mowed. There's often plenty to do. But sometimes we are at a loss and we cannot imagine what to do next. Paul invites us to start where we are, as we are, all messed up, broken, and ugly, to start right there in prayer, trusting that the God who raises the dead can pick up even us, even now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.